Hey, look alive, everybody. We're back with another movie commentary, and we're heading back to the Dragon Ball franchise. I mean, it's been a long-ass time since we did Dead Zone. It's probably been lost into the rivers of time.
No, I'm sure it's still up.
It's still up somewhere, maybe, if you can find it. Hey, good on you. But either way, I think it's time we continue on that line of work with The World's Strongest, released in 1990.
Are
Can
we
you believe that?
just not going to mention our Dragon Ball Evolution commentary?
No. I don't want to.
Yeah, this movie is as old as I am.
Yeah.
It's older than me.
Yeah, it's quite a trip. All right, so let's not waste any more time to get started. For the record, the version we are watching is the Ocean dub. It's also the edited for TV Ocean dub. It begins with the Rock the Dragon intro, and this is courtesy of the Rock the Dragon DVD box set that was made exclusively for American Ocean dub fans. Like,
You mean us old people?
Yeah, it is the first 52 episodes from the Ocean dub.
Don't link me in with you plebs. I don't care about the Ocean dub.
Then you are not true fan. But either way, Rock the Dragon, World's Strongest, that's the set it's from. So line up that version with us. We're all good to go here. Are we all ready to go?
Yeah.
On 0, hit play. So 3, 2, 1, play. There we go. Rock the Dragon.
Nostalgia!
Oh, I love Rock the Dragon.
We all do.
Yeah, it's so badass. And poor Canada. I've seen the Canadian opening.
Dragon Ball.
In the 90s, there
Dragon
were
Ball Z.
basically two ways of doing anime. Either you redid all of the music and all of the openings into cheesy half-budget Americanized things, or you did what Detective Conan did and tried to do an English version of the Japanese song, but then Americanized the fuck out of the anime itself anyway, even where it made no sense. That Mount Rushmore Festival of Lights, god damn it.
The weird thing about the Rock the
That's
Dragon...
the Sailor Moon method too,
Yeah.
actually, now that I'm thinking.
The weird thing about Rock the Dragon is that, 90% of the footage is from this and Tree of Might.
Yeah, it's from all three of the first three movies: Dead Zone, World's Strongest, and Tree of Might, with only
With a little bit of Nappa and
of
Chala.
It's basically
And
just
also,
anything
by the
Vegeta
way-
or Trunks is from the show, as far as I can tell.
way before the English dub of those episodes were fully localized. And for the longest time, I'm wondering, who the hell is that kid with the purple jacket slicing that alien-looking thing with his sword? When does Goku go yellow? Why am I watching Raditz' spaceship enter the Earth again? You know?
Why is Krillin getting punched through Kami House?
Yeah,
The Dragon Ball Z movies were always confusing as fuck to me when I was a kid, because I could never figure out where in the series they fit.
Well, they're not canon, so...
Yeah, I
don't.
know that now, but I didn't know that as a kid. We didn't have the internet at the time.
True enough. I was confuzzled myself, especially with Tree of Might, because I was like, wait, this doesn't make any fucking sense. These characters should be dead.
Yeah, like with World's Strongest, it's hard to figure out in a much more basic sense that there's no room in the sequence of events that, as the show portrays it, for this to be possible, unless Goku just ignores Super Saiyan for the entire movie for some reason, because that's like the only time he's back on Earth uninjured with everyone else.
Yeah, there's the 3 years for the androids.
Yeah.
No, that was Garlic Jr.
Oh shit, you're right.
Oh man. Like the only, and you know what? The Dead Zone is the only movie that actually fits into the anime because it was given a place.
Well, it at least
Bardock and History of Trunks do, but
it at least has the least amount of inconsistencies, because the only thing that trips me up about Dead Zone is that Krillin and Bulma apparently never met Gohan already, or I mean, one of the things already. It has something to do with Gohan's appearance in the movie, where
it's all just
they already knew of Gohan's existence when they act completely shocked to see him at the beginning.
It's all just kind of dumb. I mean, I think everyone
Yeah.
at this point can agree that the way the anime handled filler and non-canon movies is dumb.
It's also really weird. Like
Dragon Ball being dumb, you don't say.
It's also really interesting how a majority of the movies are in some way parallel the saga they were.
That's intentional.
Well, so that was intentional.
Yeah, it's like BoJack is intentionally supposed to be Cell, Janemba is intentionally supposed to be Boo, etc.
Yeah, but I think that's the easiest one to draw parallels to.
Yeah.
Meh.
But World's Strongest, for the longest time, and I mean, honestly, to this day, it's still my favorite of the Dragon Ball Z films, if only because it's really no nonsense and to the point before it wants to do. It has a very simple story. It's easy to understand, and it's very heavy on the action.
We know why you're here. Let's just get to it.
Exactly.
Well,
That's exactly
yeah,
it.
I will give World's Strongest props for being good as a side movie. Even if it doesn't.
It's also the
have
one
a
I watched the
place
most. This,
in
I mean, this
anything.
movie. I mean, honestly, God, this movie did a lot for me to further heighten my fandom as a Dragon Ball Z fan specifically because, first off, this was like I think I saw this movie first before Dead Zone because this was the time when like WB and Toonami were running the first 3 movies in syndication, not necessarily in order. Like sometimes they would air World's Strongest before Dead Zone and then Tree of Might, which for some odd reason was split up into 3 episodes before just showing the entire full-length feature film. But this was also the first ever experience I had with the Japanese soundtrack, which for some odd reason, the Ocean dub left intact for Dead Zone and World's Strongest.
But not Tree of Might.
But not Tree of Might. Like they left the soundtrack completely alone for these first 2 movies, and it was the first time I ever heard the Japanese soundtrack, and I fell instantly in love.
The other thing about the movies that charmed me as a kid, though, and I didn't realize this until much later, but they were more engaging to watch than the show. You gotta understand, though, that I watched the movies around the time Frieza was airing, so yeah,
So the 5 minutes thing.
yeah, it was the pacing of the action. Everything just seemed so much more smoother and enjoyable. I didn't understand that at the time, but that was what it was. What was happening for me.
Not to mention, like all the movies in some form or fashion just had a greater budget than your standard episode.
Yeah,
Because all the movies, I still think that they still look really good.
Well, that's having more budget, as you said.
Yeah.
So
well, somewhat.
I not Cyberman.
Although I would argue that it's not as visible here as it was.
Get wrecked, Gohan.
It's not as visible here as it is in the case of like a big Hollywood animation production like Titan AE or something like that with super smooth animation and all. This is still television quality animation.
Just better quality.
Coming from a generation in television, at least behind you guys, these kind of remind me a lot of the Pokemon movies in animation quality, I should say, because I think for the most part, most of the I haven't watched many of the movies lately, but from at least like the first 4 or 5, the animation for the Pokemon movies was pretty much about the same as the television.
Yeah,
like
just,
they do fancy things here and there for like trailer shots.
They do the Pokemon movies though. Instead of upping the quality, they went with a boatload of CG.
Because that was fancy and cool.
Yeah, and
at
then
the
they
time.
did that thing where they smoothly animated the animation around the CG sometimes, which is something that rarely happens with television animation. Like sometimes you'll get a few seconds of it in the Death Note intro or something, but when a CG shows up in a television anime, it's usually a bad sign.
Which Dragon Ball Z in particular had the benefit of not experiencing because
It was
even
too
its
early.
final movie.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, even its final movie, Wrath of the Dragon, movie 13, I think was a mid-90s movie. So
Yeah.
that was before
That was before GT
the
happened.
explosion. Well, that was just before the explosion of using CGI in an anime.
Yeah.
It might have been even if it was before Toy Story, they probably didn't even have any reason to do it.
Yeah.
Pretty
Well,
much.
when CG happened,
Disney was already doing it.
when CG
in the
happened
early
in a
90s.
television anime, it was usually a budget-saving constraint because it's cheaper to animate something that is 3D than it is to hand draw.
It is far easier to reuse.
Yeah, you just move the model. You don't have to redraw the whole picture every time you do something.
Now, I should note there's not much difference between the edited for TV version and the theatrical version. I would say theatrical. I doubt it's released in theaters.
Okay, kids, don't try doing thumb push-ups. It's not
Too
gonna
late.
help you get any stronger.
Hi, Rolf.
Yeah, well, maybe Goku is just training for his Street Fighter tournament. He has to make sure his thumbs are in shape.
But he's neglecting his index fingers. What about them? Oh wait, he's probably using a stick. Never mind. There are no shoulder buttons.
He's getting ready for that shit. Yeah, but as I was saying, like between the edited for TV version and the original version of World's Strongest, the only immediate cut I can think of is learning what
Wait,
no,
I'm wrong.
learning what Oolong's was wished for the Dragon Balls, which was a pair of panties.
If it's his
which is a
thumbs
callback
he's
to Dragon
exercising,
Ball.
he's definitely using a pad. Oh god.
Most likely.
He's a
Now,
scrub.
what I'm surprised, just like Dead Zone, they left intact was this dream sequence that Gohan's about to experience, which even as a kid confused the shit out of me. It's like, what is this sudden musical? I can't understand what he's saying. But this is pretty much the sequence where Gohan, just confirms that he idolizes Piccolo, despite the rough 6-month upbringing before the Saiyan saga.
Yeah. Well,
Were they just trying to really push the cute act factor of Gohan at this point?
Well, Gohan
or
is like
something?
6 years old at this point.
Like,
so
no, he's like 5 years old.
Yeah,
5 or 6, yeah.
When in Dragon Ball Z, cute Gohan was basically the mascot for a while, and they were sort of. When the manga was running, it was initially Gohan who was supposed to be the main character. It just sort of shifted back to Goku as the series went on. Which can happen in shonen anime. Editorial interference.
What the fuck am I looking at?
Basically, editorial, and this happens in particular with Shonen Jump. Editorial interference can sometimes change the direction of a series. Like for Naruto, for example, the only reason Sasuke exists is because the editor said we won't air this unless you give Naruto a rival character, which turned out to be dumb because Naruto already had like 3 of those besides Sasuke. So, yeah.
Well, from what I can tell, apparently the editorial stuff was like the reason why Cell has like 20 different forms is because they kept on complaining about.
Well, no, that was the Android / Cell Saga in general. Toriyama came up with Shiro and the clown thing. They didn't go over well with editorial, so he was forced to come up with 17 and 18. But that didn't go over well either because they felt they looked too similar, so he came up with Cell. But Cell was too weird, so they made him come up with different forms to make it more palatable.
Which apparently Toriyama hated.
Yeah.
If only because, and I agree with him, as an animator, Cell was a goddamn nightmare to animate because of all those fucking spots on his skin.
Well, I don't think
and all of his moving parts.
I don't think Toriyama had to deal with animating. I think that was some other sad sap. But
still,
he has to draw that.
Do you want to be that
time.
guy that says, here's this thing? Oh, that's a nice illustration. No, I want you to animate this. What?
Well, it might have
Nani?
just been a pain to draw too, because that's part of the reason why. That's part of the reason why Super Saiyans are blonde is because it's easier. You don't have to color in all the black.
That's exactly why.
That's exactly it, Ted.
Yeah, he was tired of inking his hair for every single frame, so he made Super Saiyans basically colorless in the page, so he wouldn't have to ink it.
Then you get to Super Saiyan Red and Super Saiyan Blue, and it's like, we just have to say what color the hair is in dialogue. It's you sorry suckers who have to deal with the coloring.
Are they still writing Dragon Ball manga at this point?
There's an adaptation of Super, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh man. You remember when Dragon Ball Z still had that Dragon Ball charm of, actually showing some day-to-day life every now and then and having humor? I think the only time Dragon Ball Z really went back to that was during
The events of this movie kick off because
Saiyaman.
Oolong wanted to wish for a pair of panties.
To some extent, I actually think I kind of prefer the humor in Dragon Ball Z at points to Dragon Ball because I haven't watched all of Dragon Ball or read, but I've read a lot of the early stuff, and one of my big complaints about the early Dragon Ball humor is it's pretty much just, look at all these perverts.
Yeah.
That's unfortunately Toriyama coming off of
Dr. Slump.
his previous...
Dr.
Yeah,
Slump, I
Dr.
believe.
Slump.
Yeah. Dragon Ball gets more balanced as it goes on and becomes a bit more action-oriented. I would say the latter half of Dragon Ball is probably the most balanced story in Dragon Ball in terms of humor and action.
It starts getting better once you hit the first tournament. Yeah.
Dragon Ball Z doesn't really hit that kind of tone until the Great Saiyaman filler stuff. And a lot of that was anime-only filler, Oh, man.
Remember when Master Roshi could do stuff?
And the movies do that kind of stuff too. And I would say that what was the first of the new Dragon Ball Z movies? The one with
Battle of Gods.
Battle of Gods did it
And
too.
Resurrection.
I kind of liked Battle of Gods for that. I've never watched Resurrection. After the concept just shuts my brain off.
The tonal shift though was pretty jarring. Like first time I experienced Battle of Gods because they were clearly trying to emulate the original Dragon Ball style of humor and. It's like, well, I hope you grew up with Dragon Ball at the very least, because as a Z fan, this is kind of slow.
Yeah, and trying to fit Vegeta into that kind of storyline too Interesting.
Well, that interesting, but that's also entertaining in its own way.
Because he's so out of character for it.
He's out of his element completely.
Yeah, and he's essentially a Saiyan Prince trying to live a normal human life, so that fits. But yeah.
I do have a question though. What was Bulma even doing at Kame House?
Don't people just like hang out there for no good reason? Like, I don't really
guess?
know why.
Well, she has her own
but-
personal jet car, so she can just fly around the planet like it's a drive to her aunt's
Yeah,
house.
but this is when she was still technically dating Yamcha, I think. So it's not like Yamcha's even here.
Wait, is it?
No,
I thought
think
she
she's
broke up with
just-
Yamcha at the beginning. Wait, when did she break up? When did she get together with him again? And
She was
wait,
basically they were always on and off until Yamcha
no,
got
Yamcha
killed.
isn't even supposed to be alive at this point. This is why the movies are confusing. Oh man.
By the way, hi Rolf.
What?
The ocean dub for Goku is also Rolf from Ed, Edd and Eddy.
Oh,
Peter
Ralph.
Calamus.
I thought you
Peter
said
Calamus, aka the
Tell me why you were
closest-
worried there, pig boy.
Peter
Many
Calamus
doors, yes.
is the closest you're gonna get to an English version of God, what was her name? Masako, the Japanese voice
Voice
actress
actress.
for Goku.
Yeah.
He's the closest you're gonna get to an English sounding one. Oh fucking come Magic Cloud! I love this in the big green dub.
As a nearly 30-year-old man, I have a different view of Chi-Chi than I did when I was a kid. As a kid, I just found her annoying because she was always cock-blocking Gohan when he wanted to go off on adventures. Nowadays, I'm like, okay, as an adult, I find Goku's lifestyle when he was a kid disturbing. I would not want my son emulating that. You know?
I'm surprised that they even like if I were Chi-Chi, I don't know how I would live with Goku. To be
Well,
honest.
to be fair, he doesn't, because he's dead most of the time. But
If I were Chi-Chi, I would still be keeping that goddamn head blade with the laser shooter on my head at all times, considering how much trouble seems to find this household.
It's something that is easily more discernible in the original Japanese audio compared to the dub, where the relationship between Goku and Chi-Chi is really more of just friends rather than husband and wife. At least that's how Goku sees it.
Well,
he
it's,
didn't understand what a wedding was.
Okay, it's difficult to quantify that because Japan's concept of husband and wife is a little different.
But there are also little things throughout the series that they just seal that deal in, and I think the most damning evidence towards that is an episode of Super, where Goku flat out didn't know what a kiss. He flat out admitted that he never kissed Chi-Chi. Like he never kissed Chi-Chi, which even Vegeta found shocking.
Wow, what a dickwad.
That's difficult to no, but that would mean that Chi-Chi never took initiative and showed him in like their how many decades of marriage was it again? You know what? That's just weird on every conceivable level. Okay, never mind. It's not a Japanese thing. It's just a Goku thing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Literally every other male character in the show is a better father than Goku.
Well, yeah, but that just brings me back to my original point. Goku's childhood is fucked up, and I would not want my son emulating that.
Well, the series literally starts with him getting brain damage, so...
Like him getting shot in the head by Bulma.
Well, no, I'm talking about him landing on Earth.
Well, yeah,
he
that
was
too.
he was a little saying shit when he landed on Earth. Apparently,
Oh yeah,
and then he bumped his head and then he's
lost
fine.
his memory. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so
Oh man.
man, it is like this is I know that this is a problem with pretty much every kind of shonen anime, but the fact that it always bothered me the most in Dragon Ball that all of these characters ended up feeling useless, I guess.
Yeah.
Because, like, Master Roshi at one point was the strongest human on Earth. And I mean, granted, like, he's an old guy, so
Yeah.
like, it makes sense that he wouldn't be, like, the focus when you have characters like Goku or
There
Piccolo
are-
or Krillin or whatever.
There are
but-
series that handle it a lot better than Dragon Ball. I mean, Dragon Ball Z is basically the Superman to Japan's everything else. But like the powers in particular are kind of bland, and it's only really like in these movies where the energy blasts and the flying around really has any great choreography going on. Whereas if you were to watch a series like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, for example, or early Naruto, even, there's a lot more conceptual awesomeness going on in the fights.
I would say early Naruto. Later Naruto, it just becomes a Naruto and Sasuke show.
Yeah, later Naruto becomes a superpowered one-upmanship fest that's really honestly kind of boring. But early Naruto had a lot going on in its fights that was interesting to follow and think about. And yeah, I wrote some Naruto fan fiction at points when I was younger, just to play around with the fighting mechanics. There was a lot of stuff you could make up and play around with in what was there, and that kind of stuff is interesting. Whereas with Dragon Ball, it's just like, okay, what's the difference between Kamehameha and the Final Flash? Vegeta holds his arms out to his sides before using Final Flash, and Goku does that sort of
why is a special beam cannon special?
I think honestly, God, the biggest instigator from all that, just like comparing other characters' usefulness compared to other characters, is the idea of power levels, which I'm sure that Toriyama fucking shoot himself in the foot nowadays for even thinking of that idea. Because,
the power levels, as far as I can understand it, were originally supposed to not matter. They were supposed to not make any sense.
Yeah, but kids don't think that. They see numbers.
Yeah.
And when they hear that, and when they, especially like with the first time Scouters are introduced, when Bulma fixed Raditz and started like measuring Roshi's and Krillin's, how low they were compared to Goku or Piccolo, that sticks with you.
Yeah, the thing about power levels is that they made more sense as a concept when the series was supposed to end at Frieza. It's the kind of concept that makes sense narratively until you consider dragging the series out infinitely, because when you consider that, it basically writes you into a corner.
Because I'm pretty sure, like, when Super was bringing up the idea of a world tournament saga and bringing back like Roshi and Krillin and the androids into the fray, I'm pretty sure like the major reason why at least younger audiences weren't buying it is because they thought of power levels. It's like, no, Roshi.
We established for how many years and years of the show that basically no one besides the Saiyans matter.
What could they possibly do that that Goku already can't? And I think it's power levels you have to blame for that.
Another thing that
I think Super is doing a good enough job running around that.
Another thing that you have to blame power levels for, and this is kind of a movie exclusive thing though, is that have you ever noticed how many times Goku has needed a super dramatic moment to re-achieve Super Saiyan in a Dragon Ball Z movie? He just ignores it until he gets angry enough, which he never does in the main series.
Yeah, it's cooler. I immediately think of.
He never does that in the main series. Like he only ever ignores his Super Saiyan power in the main series when it's a drawback to him, like with Super Saiyan 3, or when he's trying to have more of a fair fight, like in the Pikkon thing. Yeah. So it's dumb.
Yeah. It's kind of the difference between, like you were saying, like there aren't really that many differences in terms of powers between them. So it's not even like you could be like, oh, Krillin's got these abilities that would make him best suited for this situation. It's like, no, Krillin can't do anything because he's just not as good.
Yeah.
And Destructive Disc never hits.
Yeah, and it would have worked.
Well, it didn't. It didn't matter.
It would have worked fine if the series had ended with Frieza, like Goku becomes a legendary Super Saiyan. Well, I should just say Super Saiyan, because legendary Super Saiyan is his own thing, apparently. But, like, Goku becomes a Super Saiyan, he defeats what is basically an alien god, and that's it. Where can you go from there? The answer is nowhere, and the series spent, like, 3-4 seasons after that going nowhere.
And that's why they brought Frieza back for the movie, for Resurrection F.
But that just made it worse.
Yes.
Money.
Wasn't that? Didn't that do like stupid well?
Yeah,
the Resurrection
F did tremendously well.
Yeah,
of course it did.
Of course it did. but it's that kind of stuff is why I enjoyed stuff like the Great Saiyaman, because it broke away from that power level laden numbers game where everything is about how big your energy penis is, and it started to do some interesting stuff. Like, okay, you've got Gohan, who's like ungodly powerful because of all the stuff he's gone through, trying to become a superhero. That's
he's incredibly smart, but he's very poorly socially adjusted because of all the shit that goes on around
that's
him.
amusing, and everything that was happening in that series told a very compelling, humorous story. Right up.
You're not much of a
until-
fighter, but you can sure take a punch.
Right up until Bobbity showed up and everything became about power level energy penises again, and Videl became useless even though she was being built up to have some sort of part in the story, and everything just sort of fell back to where it was before after that point. Except the bad guy was pink now.
I guess people probably just thought that it was boring. Is my guess. Like, oh, we don't want to watch.
Well,
we don't want to watch this. We want to see them fight stuff.
I want to watch Slices of Life Z.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, all of those people have grown up now, and quite a lot of them, have grown some taste. So yeah, unfortunately, yeah, it's a little hard to look back at Dragon Ball Z and not see the problems when you're as old as we are.
It is. Like my brother Mark and I, when we grew up watching the show together every single day when it aired. We still go back to watch it, and that's because of nostalgia, but we also like ripping it to shit.
Yeah. But
well, that's why Abridged is so popular.
That's not to knock the action in Dragon Ball Z. I mean, at times like this, it can be really quite fun. I mean, this is an interesting fight with Goku, having trouble with this fat alien thing that's thrown him for a loop.
You can't just punch, yeah.
And, it's not just the alien's bizarre body type that gave him trouble. It was also the ice on the floor, and then there's this. This is constantly changing. It's not just, fists flying so fast that they're just blurry lines on the screen for 15 fucking minutes. This is fun action. This is great action. I love this action. World's Strongest is great. It doesn't make any sense in the series, but it's great.
Yeah, the
beam spam actually does something.
Yeah, but even this beam spam is better choreographed than all the beam spam in the series put together.
Right, because they're just aiming in one direction most of the time.
You're aiming in one direction, not even doing anything. It's like playing
Exactly.
Budokai Tenkaichi, but I'm Tish.
No, but the next sequence of actions is like some of my favorite in the entire series, and yeah, I said the entire series, if only because the choreography, how fast paced it is, and the music.
we're not at the point where we need to show how powerful they are by just making them a bunch of blurry lines.
Yeah. Also, credit to the Ocean dub specifically, because I may have mentioned this earlier, and some people view it as a detriment in some points. To me, it's a case-by-case basis, but this is one where I think it adds to the scene. Ocean dub had a tendency of adding sound effects to the action scenes. Like things that were clearly not there in the original Japanese audio, like for extra kick to sound effects and all that sort of shit. They did that with these sequences here, and I really think it adds to the punch that Goku does to these guys. Like crashing through the walls and projectiles coming out of their hands. It's the added crunch that I really think emphasizes how hard Goku is hitting these fucking
This
in
right
the
here,
face.
though, is why this movie makes no sense. He's got the Kaio-Ken. He's on Earth, uninjured. He hasn't become a Super Saiyan yet. There's no point where this is possible.
This also, you know what also confused me though? This movie was the first to pronounce Kaio-Ken correctly.
Yeah.
Because of the TV show.
Oh, yeah, it was
Kaio-Ken.
They called it
I
Kaio-Ken.
forgot about that.
He learns Kaio-Ken after he dies. Okay.
Yeah, because he has to go to King Kai and learn to be stronger than Vegeta and Nappa.
Yeah, and then the sequence of events in the anime is he comes back during the fight with Vegeta, gets royally messed up during the fight with Vegeta, and everyone goes to Namek before he recovers. And then he follows them to Namek. There is no point between those events where everyone was on Earth safe and sound and Gohan was having his happy life.
Or maybe he was having like a dream in the middle of the hospital bed.
Do they ever explain why they didn't just stuff Goku full of sensu beans and send them along with them? They didn't have any?
He took the last he took the last of the sensu beans from Korin's tower on his way to the Vegeta fight, and those were used up during
Korin makes the excuse that they're very hard to make.
Oh, sure they are. That's why they have 50 million of them whenever they're needed.
This is also another something we really don't get in Dragon Ball Z a lot, is that multiple combatants, not just a one-on-one fight.
Right.
Oh yeah, you have to have everybody standing around watching.
Although
you can't have.
There are times this movie does reuse some things from Dead Zone, like the movie right before this. like multiple goons fighting Goku at once, the Goku versus Piccolo fight that we'll see later down the road. You know, in a way that kind of makes the movie feel a little cheap. It's like, let's just reuse things that worked in the first movie and just do it again.
Yeah.
Well, I must be referring to the show, but
It's kind of like the Uncharted 2, Uncharted 3 comparison, where the third game was obviously, like very obviously, trying to mimic structural elements of the previous one, and it came off as cheap as a result.
also, hi, Krillin, where'd you come from?
I like how they tried to mask him in shadow and make him look mysterious and cool, but you're Krillin, so that's not going to happen.
Yeah, but Krillin was fairly badass at this point, still.
No,
Yeah, 'cause this
Krillin's
is
like
still
one of my
early
favorite
Z.
characters, but he's one of my favorite characters specifically because he's not the strongest. But he's not the strongest, but he tries anyway.
He's not the strongest, but he was pretty formidable up until the Frieza fight. Up until he exploded during the Frieza fight, that was the official cutoff point of Krillin being useful.
Cutoff is putting it mildly.
I mean, he did do well during that fight, but after that point, not so much.
Like, I can't even really remember if he has any major fights after that point. Like, I think he might technically fight one of the androids a little bit, but
No, not really.
no, he doesn't. He doesn't.
No, everyone else
Okay.
fights the androids because their asses kicking. Krillin's like, well, fuck, what am I supposed to do?
Press the button. That's what you're supposed to do, Krillin.
But
Press
boner.
the button. Oh, Whiplash is the worst villain. Iron Man 2 sucks so much.
Man. I found Iron Man 2 okay. Just okay, though.
God damn those vocal cords.
He's definitely trying to mimic Masako at some
is
points.
Masako Nozawa. There you go. That's the
Yeah.
name. It's off the top of my head. The longest fucking time.
You gonna
Like, he
help
really
Gohan and
fucking
Krillin so
screams
they can
his
fight these
lungs
guys
out.
with you? No? Right, okay. It's gotta be the Goku
But this is all
show
great.
again.
Like, I love how fierce he is with the Kaio-Ken here. Like, especially this part coming up right here. He teleports trying to get the up on Goku. He rematerializes and is like, bitch. Bam. It's like, fuck you.
So what was the downside to the Kaio-Ken again? It drained your energy really quick?
It's basically it's like a burst multiplier for your power. One of
Except
the
it
things,
really fucking hurts you when you do it.
Yeah, one of the things that was actually kind of clever about the Kaio-Ken that was brought up around the time Super, I think he does it in Super finally, is he uses the Kaio-Ken while he's in a Super Saiyan form, which is not
There is
something
there is an actual explanation for
yeah,
that.
I know, which is not something he'd normally be able to do because Super Saiyan throws his control out of whack and he would probably kill himself if he tried it.
Yeah, Kaio-Ken requires complete mastery of yourself and basically your ki, and
Yeah,
Super Saiyan
is all
basically
about,
fills him
like,
with.
You're out of
Super
control
Saiyan,
emotions.
you're driven by rage.
Yeah, so the two
not in
are
control.
fundamentally incompatible. So
And we don't count the filler Super Saiyan Kaio-Ken in the World Tournament Afterlife one.
Yeah. Meanwhile, once he finally gets the quote unquote God key in Super, it's a more serene state, so he can actually do it.
yeah.
Right, which is a clever workaround, I agree. But I do find Kaio-Ken just more interesting, if only because of its limiter, where you can't rely on it too heavily.
Yeah, that
otherwise
and
you end up killing
that
yourself.
it was introduced to be his trump card against Vegeta, but it didn't work.
Right.
Like
Actually, technically nothing worked against Vegeta.
Vegeta took everything.
Yeah, and that was what made the Vegeta arc so interesting compared to the basically everything that followed. Is that no, Goku did not win by overpowering him. There was a real struggle there, and
Goku basically didn't. Technically, Goku didn't even win.
Yeah, he didn't even win in a straight fight against Vegeta. It just sort of there was a story being told. Shocking, I know. Thanks for illustrating that, Goku. Oh man, I didn't mean that. I didn't actually know he was about to be electrified. It just sort of happened as I was saying it. Maybe I'm psychic.
Or you seen the movie before.
I haven't watched this movie in like 10 years. God damn.
Instinct. You never forget your first time.
Mecha Ridley.
Oh man.
I'm a brain in a jar.
Fucking brain.
Wait a minute, brains in a jar. This is Metroid.
I also do like World's Strongest, if only because the enemy that they wind up fighting is kind of non-standard for Dragon Ball, I would say. I mean, like, there's Cooler, there's Brawly, there's Super Saiyan, you got your alien who looks like Frieza, you got your other weird aliens. There's this robot that's a brain in a jar. This is far closer to something Dragon Ball would have produced if it had gone on longer.
It's like right out of a 50s mad scientist flick.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dragon Ball had them fighting all sorts of like dinosaurs and shit. Like, I always miss the dinosaurs in Dragon Ball. You have dinosaurs, why don't you use them?
Now they just wind up being the butt of tail meat jokes.
Right.
Mark
my words, the final enemy of Dragon Ball is going to be a dinosaur uprising.
That was actually kind of funny, though, is that Gohan needed to eat, but he didn't want to kill anything, so he just wound up cutting slices off the tail of this one dinosaur.
Right.
And by the end, he's chasing the dinosaur around, laughing as he does it.
Which, just in the dinosaur's eyes, Gohan might as well just be a serial killer.
I just look back at that and I realize that it didn't actually happen. It was a nightmare. It was Chi-Chi's nightmare sequence. She was just dreaming that while Gohan was missing. It's exactly what she feared would happen all this time, and she couldn't stop it.
Your son's become a dinosaur eater. Oh, is that what you're not afraid of? I'm sorry.
To be fair, Goku, with Dr. Willow, there is probably enough space in your head for both of those brains.
Hi-oh.
No, but I never understood this because Dr. Willow's brain is so freaking huge.
Yeah.
Which brains are made fun of, so.
Maybe it's like a digital transfer, like get all Matrix and this shit. I don't know. It's a big fucking brain, though.
What the hell?
I think it's like implied that Willow's like in charge of the tremors, because it's
something like that.
What happened there? He just stumbled.
Wow,
and fell.
Piccolo, you look like you haven't gotten sleep in days.
Oh man, we're about almost a month too late to make that joke. Yeah.
Well, that was surprisingly easy.
You probably should have restrained him with something a little more sturdy than licorice. This is another thing that I kind of like about the old style of Dragon Ball Z, though. The art style. It's rounder. It's more human looking.
Yeah, they won't. I don't think they wouldn't overutilize the angular designs until Super Saiyan.
Yeah.
There's a clear like, this isn't just Dragon Ball. There's a very clear difference between older Akira Toriyama art and newer Akira Toriyama art. Like Dragon Quest, for instance, that was also drawn by Akira Toriyama. The art for a lot of the old games looks a lot more similar to this kind of Dragon Ball, where the newer games have much more.
That happens. That happens a lot of the time as artists go on. They find quicker ways to draw things because they have a deadline to meet every goddamn week, and that sometimes that leads to interesting things. Though, like in Death Note, for example, the way Light Yagami's hair and stuff was drawn, it got simpler as the series went on, and then he loses his memory partway through, and the artist goes back to the old way of drawing him, which I thought was really clever.
This is still a time where characters had pronounced like cheekbones and all that kind of thing, and not this angular chins. Which looks great at a standstill, which is, I think, the most important thing is that you can take a still from the animation.
The thing is, a lot of the time, what that results in is the art improving, whereas with Toriyama, it just sort of altered its style and became more cookie cutter in a sense. Like in
which
this
is
style,
which is weird, in that it's also kind of oddly compares to the dub, because when you go back to Ocean versus Funny, oddly, kind of Scott McNeil works better as early Piccolo when he's more kind of still generally villainous. And I would say kind of the same with Vegeta.
Yeah, if we're talking small Vegeta with the tail and the Scouter and the Saiyan armor, it has to be Brian Drummond. Like, it cannot be Christopher Sabat.
Man. I mean, then when the art changes after the whole Namek stuff, and their personalities kind of change as the story goes along, The dub change actually kind of works in his favor because now it
Right.
looks different, so it sounds different too.
I went back. I listened to the Ocean dub of the Majin Buu series. I can't listen to it, which is really
The
weird.
Ocean dub went that far?
Yeah, because they had the rights
They
for
were-
Canada.
Yeah. They
Oh,
were the starting
okay.
of the series, and Brian Drummond is still
Was still
voicing
Vegeta.
Vegeta around that time, but the build is completely different, and now the voice doesn't make sense to me.
The other thing, though, is that in this art style, you can more clearly see distinctive facial features than you can in the later art style. So it's almost like Toriyama lost that talent as he drew rather than gaining it. Which, can happen. If you practice at one thing and neglect another, you're probably going to lose.
Well, he
your,
probably just laid. I don't think Toriyama directed any of the movies.
I would be very interested.
The first movie I think
mangas-
he had anything really to do with was Battle of Gods.
Yeah,
I
but
think
this
it'd
was
be-
also the way that the anime and as far as I know, the manga was drawn at the time.
True.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to compare similar scenes. I mean, I'm sure people have done this already, but from what I can remember, at least for early, because I'm not very familiar with any Dragon Ball Z manga like after Saiyans, Namek. Why'd I call him Namek? Nappa and Vegeta. I don't know how the manga art really looks for Frieza, Saga, Cell, or Buu. So I think comparing the anime and the manga
Yeah.
would actually be pretty interesting.
Yeah, it would be. It's just like I'm just saying that Toriyama practiced one particular method of drawing, which emphasized getting things done more quickly, and his individual character facial and design sort of suffered for it.
Yeah, well, because
And
what's easier to draw than straight lines and angles?
Well, it's because Toriyama is one of the more prominent examples of that anime style of drawing that emphasizes the overall appearance of a character over their face for making distinctive characters, and it really shows with Toriyama because he has like 5 faces between all of his characters.
Yes.
Whereas other artists like the one who drew Death Note, or I would probably say I'm not so sure about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure because I haven't seen that much of it, but I think there's more distinctive facial design there too. Basically, artists who focus on drawing more realistic, down-to-earth anime have to put more interesting designs into their faces. Like if you've ever watched, here's a good example: Ghost in the Shell standalone complex. There's a lot more distinctive face stuff going on there.
At the same time, it does give your art design a bit of notoriety. I mean, people can look at your art from no matter what the anime or cartoon could be, and they say, "Yeah, that's Toriyama." Instantly, you recognize it.
Well,
as
I think it
Toriyama.
also matters that Dragon Ball is a action anime, and you need to be able to tell at a distance that this is Vegeta and this is Goku and this is Piccolo, and having distinctive outfits, hairstyles, that's gonna matter more than faces. Because like if you've got any sort of pinned out shot, you're not seeing much of that at
Right.
all.
Yeah, that stuff is also something to consider, but at the same time, that's not necessarily true of the manga that Toriyama drew. That's more just a happy consequence of his art style meshing well with an anime adaptation, really. Toriyama, though, what makes his art style so distinctive is that it is distinctive. There's not really anyone who draws like Toriyama unless they're intentionally setting out to draw like Toriyama, you know?
Yeah,
Like-
that is one thing. Like Toriyama has a specific style where a lot of other anime, you can't name the animator nearly as easily.
Well, yeah, not nearly as easily. Like, I think some people give anime in general a little too little credit. Like, they'll point to something like Sword Art Online and say there's no distinctive style. There is a distinctive style there. It's the distinctive style of the illustrator from the light novels that the animators are trying to mimic. But that's the only distinctive style it's got.
We're just going to assume he died.
Oh, he does. They should have flat out killing him.
I bring that up though because, and this is a bit off track, but with Sword Art Online, one of the things I noticed playing the video games in particular is that whenever they tried to design a new character for the games in particular, it very clearly was not the design by the novel illustrator. Instead, it was, ooh, he's dying pretty hard. Instead, it was just this really super generic design. And it kind of made me appreciate the designs that the illustrator came up with, to be honest. Ugh.
Well, he didn't technically die because he was a robot, so
Robots can die.
whatever.
This is kind of like a. This whole setup kind of feels like a prototype for the goddamn Android saga. In fact, if you look at it, Dr. Willow's Robobody here has some slight hints of Cell going on in its appearance.
I would say more Frieza than anything.
Well, Cell and Frieza both had similar design elements. It was that
Right.
point where Toriyama's sort of
Let's add a fuckload of lines to places.
yeah. It was something I started to notice even when I was a kid, is that Cell and Frieza had some similar design elements going on, and Toriyama was starting to get a little stale artistically.
Which makes me wonder if, like, did Toriyama imagine his, like, manga ever being adapted into an anime? Because there are just some designs that's like, Jesus Christ, how long did this take to animate with all these lines on these spots? It's like,
Well, a lot of it was probably influenced by the knowledge that it was being adapted, because let's remember, the anime for Dragon Ball Z was going on while the manga was still in progress, which is why they faffed around for so many goddamn years on filler.
you're right.
Ugh. Okay, the way that was animated just looked like a laser fart. I
Yeah,
know he
the
was
laser
like
came out
angling
of
his
his
arm
ass.
backward, but it was just awkward from a perspective angle. And
You know, this is something that bothers me in not just in this, but in movies in general. It's just like, okay, we're gonna have all these characters. They're gonna team up to fight the bad guy. Oh, blast! One of them's down. Blast! One of them's down. Oh, look how dramatic it
the
is. Like,
hero must fight alone.
And
It's
they
like,
remember the
okay.
power pool exists.
And now it's gone.
it's
Wasn't
like,
that technically
okay,
on Goran's tower? But anyway, go on, Ted.
I don't buy that Krillin would take one hit and not stop fighting. Like, okay, like he wouldn't last the whole time, I don't believe, but like I don't think that these guys would just be bitch slapped and then not help after this, you know?
You know, one of the most ridiculous things about the whole power level thing, though, is that it sort of resulted in Goku losing the element that tied him to his source material. Because, you know, Goku, Journey to the West, all that stuff.
Yeah, Sun
The power
Wukong.
pole just sort of disappears after the way the series is written, has the side effect of making the power pole completely fucking useless.
Well, technically, he left it on Goran's tower to connect to Kami's Lookout, but whatever.
Yeah, but that was just an excuse to write it out of the story.
Yeah.
Let's not even... I mean, he doesn't need to do that anymore. He can fly. So, the whole connecting it to Korin's tower is useless now.
This event's leading up here to me is one of my favorite instances of Kaio-Ken, and one of my favorite Kamehamehas in the entire series. Just the way he decimates Willow here, body pieces apart, and then what is pretty much a parallel to the Goku versus Vegeta beam struggle. This right here, I fucking love.
Uh,
And again, the
Okay.
music has a big part of it.
okay, I was gonna say, like, shouldn't this thing run out of batteries if it's if it's shooting out that much energy? But, now I'm just getting into power level bull crap again.
So what do you think happens when those beams go into space?
They fly off infinitely and then
Sorry, I'm just making a
Click.
joke.
Poor Arlia.
Again.
the beams land on a far off planet and then create an explosion that eventually develops life.
Yeah.
Then that explosion takes a humanoid shape, flies back to Earth, and takes revenge on its creator.
Sure.
Oh god, now I'm giving Toriyama ideas. I should stop. Well,
That's the end of that chapter.
was that actually the end?
No.
Did he? No, he's gonna come back. Right. Just like Vegeta. You see what they did there?
Also, the original version of this movie, I think for the first time, because there was two versions of this movie for the Ocean dub. There was the edited for TV, and there was also the uncut version, which you can only get on like VHS tapes, which had a minimum amount of swearing in the dub. Like characters would say "damn," "hell," or dude, bastard and such shit. And that was the first time I ever heard characters in DBZ curse.
Man, that's kind of a shaky localization territory, though, because
But
Japanese
that's how you
don't-
know they're serious.
yeah, but the Japanese don't view swearing the same way we.
Well,
do
swearing as a
swearing.
concept doesn't exist in Japanese.
Yeah, so like it's always been it's always been a point of debate where with localization. I mean, do you directly translate the swearing knowing that the intent changes with the language or what?
Fuck you, Sasuke.
Oh, Ted, you just reminded me. Oh my god! I remember the first time I ever bought VHS tapes of a subbed Dragon Ball GT. And I'm talking early 2000s before it was even thought about being localized officially, and the subtitles were laughable.
Oh, you mean like all fan subs were at the time?
How much? Yeah, exactly, man. There was like a fucking every single paragraph.
You know, I get why people focus on the swearing so much because it's the most obvious thing about translation. And here in America, we've all got hard-ons
Fuck
about
this,
our
fuck that.
anti-censorship concept. But you know,
I think it was more of a anime's not for kids. It's not a cartoon. This is serious.
yeah, that's dumb. The problem with it was for kids when it was in Japan. Let's not kid ourselves.
That's why it's called shonen. That means
But-
young boy.
When I think of an uncut or uncensored anime dub, I'm thinking more about the events as they play out. I'm more concerned about people being sent to the Shadow Realm instead of being killed. You know, that kind of force.
Send you to the next dimension.
The next dimension, and now you go rotten Hiffle.
Yeah, because it's
Home
you know,
for infinite losers.
Yeah.
like it's just one of those things where in Japan you could have a character using the most impolite words and it's not considered offensive. Like the character they do
it's
that for
not-
characters all the time just to make them seem humorous. But if you
Yeah.
have a character spouting fuck all the time on a show on TV, it drastically changes the meaning of the
Yeah,
piece. So yeah, it implies a seriousness that might not necessarily be there in the Japanese. Oh, Spirit Bomb! Oh, is it going to do something?
Well, it's a movie, and we only have a few minutes left, so it better.
That didn't take very long. Now, of course, this whole situation played out like it did with Vegeta, but, well, it's not going to play out like it did with Vegeta, because here, the Spirit Bomb we've been building up actually works.
I'm just
Spirit
gonna
Bomb
let.
has the biggest track record in the movies, more than the actual series.
Well, he only
Yeah.
uses it 3 times in a series, and it fails 2 of the 3 times. So
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. But he uses it in World's Strongest. He uses it in Android 13.
I think the way the Boo saga ended was Toriyama's apology for making the Spirit Bomb so useless.
Well, because as cool as the move is, it requires a huge ass charge up time.
Like you can't really do it anything with it. It's like taking an actual cannon and trying to aim it at somebody when
Yeah,
they've got
and hoping
when they're
they don't
chasing
move.
you with a pistol. You know, it's just like okay, yeah, you'll definitely kill them with that cannon, but good luck putting the cannonball in there before you're shot in the head.
Oh man. I do like the Gohan Piccolo dynamic in this movie though. I mean, it's not very well explored, but I like it.
well, I mean, Piccolo is Gohan's real dad at this point, so
You don't get to see quite as much of Gohan and Piccolo as I would have liked, especially in the manga where everything just sort of speeds past that point.
Well, that's one instance where filler actually can help is character dynamics.
Oh yeah, like the Saiyan saga in the anime has the same thing going on that Moribito does in its own anime form, where the middle of the story is greatly expanded and fleshed out. Whereas, actually, both stories are very comparable in that respect because in the anime there's this big time skip over an entire portion of the year. Same with the Moribito novel. In the Dragon Ball Z anime and the Moribito anime, there's a whole lot of stuff that happens during that time.
Right. It's more like, sure, Gohan living in the wilderness and how he becomes a better survivor. Because I've actually just recently read the manga of Z, like the early stuff, and it's like, wow, they made up a lot of shit for the anime, but it wasn't all bad, mind you. You know, it was good for character development, and all that. It was hit and miss, though. To be perfectly honest,
It
I
was
never
hit and
really
miss,
got
yeah.
Gohan making friends with the robot. That always felt like a waste of time
He's
to
just-
me.
I mean,
personally.
damn.
they added the filler at a place where filler could logically be added, and for
Right.
that I applaud them. In the Saiyan saga specifically, things get a hell of a lot dumber when you get to Namek.
Or
Yeah, I
or
don't think,
post Namek
you know-
with Garlic Jr. again.
I'm not sure if it was me, but I don't really think it was 5 minutes.
Well, it could be worse, as long as we're not going by Frieza time trying to get to the Universal Tournament arc in Super.
Right.
Frieza time. It's called that because he freezes time. You get it?
Yeah, FST, Frieza Standard Time.
Well, the last
What about
episode of
Frieza
Super,
Daylight
last
Time?
episode of Super, it's like we have 4.5 hours until the tournament starts. It's like, well, fuck, if we're going by Frieza time, it's going to be at least like 500 episodes.
That was a bad way to go. The glass just shattering in the vacuum of space, exposing the brain to zero
Don't
air
worry, it
pressure.
didn't last long.
Ugh. Yeah, but they showed that in the edited for TV version that kids were allowed to watch.
I'd say he's a robot.
When I saw this movie as a kid, that creeped me the fuck out.
Well, it's not like he could feel anything. He's just a brain.
Yeah, I know, but still.
He could think about it really hard, though.
The brain is the most vulnerable part of the human body, and seeing that happen is just fundamentally creepy. You know?
Yay, we saved the day.
I mean, to put this into perspective, it's kind of like seeing someone be Temple of Doomed.
And that's
With
the
all
end of
blood.
that chapter. Damn it, Goku, don't say that again.
You jinxed it. You gone done jinxed it.
So much for Dr. Willie.
Piccolo, why are you-
He dare mocks the son of a shepherd.
Ugh, he's being that guy again. Also, why are you walking away slowly? You could have just flown away.
Oh, he's tired, all right?
He's got to look cool.
Yeah.
Did Piccolo and Vegeta ever fight?
No.
Because no, okay. Because like
But
they need to.
They talked about that in the
Piccolo,
abridged series.
Piccolo, where the hell did all the rest of your footsteps go?
Probably flew off.
Yeah, he flew off at that
sank
point.
into the snow.
What bugs me about that, and this is a really nitpicky detail, is that even though he stopped walking, there are no matching footprints for where he stopped. So what? Did he just stop mid-footstep with one of his feet in the air? Or what?
Time for a digital paint job.
Also,
Like,
Bulma, with that outfit, why aren't you dead right now?
I realize that's just a case of the animators forgetting to include that detail, but still.
Well, it's a far less worrisome detail than them forgetting that Raditz existed in Bardock.
Well, it's a far worse worrisome detail than forgetting to give everyone Bluetooth headsets when they're supposed to be in communication
right.
with each other.
That's a good point, Ted. Like, the final line of this movie should be, "Fuck me, I'm cold."
Wait, so Funimation did help with this dub then?
For the broadcasting rights.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Funimation redubbed it later.
Yeah.
Then okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
Like
Mr. Piccolo.
I think at some point the Ocean dub just sort of transferred over to Funimation and they dubbed what hadn't been dubbed yet.
Essentially.
and they didn't go back and redub the older episodes. I think until the DVD box sets happened.
Yeah, the orange box.
Yeah, I have a few of those. I have up until the Trunk Saga.
I have the entire thing.
Same
and
here.
Don't regret it.
Me neither. The weird
Trunk Saga was the point where I started to think, you know what, this is a colossal waste of time and money. I'm not doing this anymore.
the weird thing about the Funimation dubbing of the early episodes is that they've done it like 3 or 4 different times.
Right. And to me, I think if you're going to watch the early stuff, you just better watching Kai.
Yeah.
'Cause I think to me,
No,
at
it's
this point
it's
in
weird
time-
watching like the early episodes on the orange box where you can tell they're basically just doing the ocean dub again.
Right. Well, to me, nothing will ever be as egregious as the first time they ever dubbed Dragon Ball Z. You won't find those in an orange box anywhere
No.
because they redubbed them afterwards. But holy shit. Like, when they were first doing the character voices, they were doing their damnedest to replicate the ocean dub, and it was not working. It was awful. But
Oh man.
to me, like, if you're gonna, like, to me, the definitive English dub nowadays, I mean, I'm obviously always gonna have a nostalgia boner for the ocean dub, but like Kai is damn near perfect.
as close as we'll get. Although I still somewhat prefer the older Frieza in that it sounds better as an alien villain sort of thing.
I like Chris though. I'm the guy's name.
Chris Ayers.
Chris Ayers. Yeah. For
No, it's
Kai
It's
Frieza-
Greg Ayers. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I thought. I'm pretty sure it was Greg. Either way.
Yeah,
Kai
no.
Frieza-
I like his voice. It's just a matter of, I think the older one still surprisingly works.
Nah, carton smoker. It's okay, cigarette smoker. That's what I hear from Frieza. That's
Fair enough.
I never really liked that Frieza.
Fair enough.
Linda Young, I think, was her voice.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's World's Strongest. Dragon Ball Z's still
Tree of
one my
Light next
favorites.
time.
Oh yeah, Tree of Might. Wow, I have not fully watched that one in a long time. And I'm tempted. Maybe we should do it in 3 parts to replicate how Funimation aired it originally.
Jeez.
But no, we're not gonna do that. We'll do Tree of Might next time, later down the road. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Go watch it. It's many different ways to get it, and I hope you all had a great time watching along with.
I
us.
like how you tell people to watch the movie after they've already watched the movie.
But now you got to watch the uncut DVD one from Funimation.
Well, a lot of people actually do just listen to these commentaries as
Yeah.
podcasts or something. So, that was for them.
Cool.
It's a good movie. You should watch it.
Please support the official release.